The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Today, we're going to be hitting a topic that every MSP is dealing with, even if they don't realize just how they're being exposed. We spend a lot of time talking about EDR, MDR, phishing, identity, but there's one attack step that almost always happens first, long before the payload, long before the breach, and long before the oh no moment, reconnaissance. The moment that the bad guy checks to see what's open, what's reachable, and what they can poke at. And here's the reality MSPs live in today. We got remote staff, hybrid environments, random devices joining networks, and perimeter firewalls that just don't see the whole picture anymore. So today we are going to talk about how MSPs can stop threats before they ever connect, literally making assets invisible until you explicitly allow them. And joining me today is someone that lives and breathes zero trust every day. I have Joshua Mohr. I'm going to go ahead and bring in our good friend Joshua from ThreatLocker. How are you doing today, Joshua?
Doing good, Dan. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here on the show. ThreatLocker continues pushing the boundaries on what zero trust actually looks like in the real world, and network control is a huge leap forward. So, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
I just want to, jump in and let's just kick things off.
hmm
Let's go ahead and start. Just in the first area here. I want
hmm
to talk a bit about. We're going to go ahead and bring up your slide deck there. I want to
hmm
talk about network reconnaissance. Why is network reconnaissance still one of the very first steps attackers use? And also, I guess, why or really what makes it so effective in MSP environments?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And I think what would be good is just to give an intro to network control because doing this
Yeah.
for 5.5 years, network control is still so new to a lot of our threat locker customers that are so used to just application control, the ring fencing, the elevation, the storage. They still don't really see the full picture and value of network control. And like you said, it is such an important layer because that is pretty much the lead to the payload, to the breach, being able to just prevent what ports open, what services open. So we're really going to be diving into how to give you a very configurable cloud-based management tool with network control. But just want to give the quick intro here, as you
Yeah.
can see in the slide. So network control is an endpoint and server firewall, host level. That's going to give you full control and visibility of inbound and outbound traffic. Ultimately, it's going to help you protect your managed devices. It's going to let you see devices that don't have threat lockers. So just those random IoT devices. And we have some examples of that. And we can quickly build exclusions based on custom rules. We'll be able to use keywords, use IP addresses, ranges, but ultimately use dynamic ACLs, which is going to then authenticate the threat locker agent in being able to be the source to the destination machine. So
Yeah.
that's the intro there with network control. And then if we get to slide 2, really goes into the benefits of threat lockers network control, where easy configurable, everything is in our web portal. If you haven't seen it before, you have an area for network control. You're able to list all the policies and what ports and services you're going to allow based on device, based on IP. It's all cloud based, so you don't have to then, if you're going to push down a change or deploy anything, you don't have to go one by one to your servers or endpoints. You can deploy, it's going to hit every device within 30 to 60 seconds. Dynamics is going to be a important layer here because we're today's environment when it comes to network is not the same as it was 25 years ago. People are not just working in the corporate environment, they're
Right.
working at home. I was at Disney this weekend. Saw people working there
Yeah.
at
Absolutely.
the park. And that's the biggest thing with ThreatLocker is that our policies are stored locally. So it doesn't matter where you are around the world, our policies will be saved. So certain ports will be able to be open and certain ports will not be able to open based on how you have ThreatLocker configured. And
Yeah.
that's really going to ensure you if there's a random IoT device, even if they were able to get onto the network, they will not be able to access your workstations and servers that are protected by ThreatLocker.
Yeah, it is funny you mentioned being in Disney, and I remember back in my MSP days of literally being in. I want to say it was one of the parks at Disney, and being on a tablet and remoting into a server, and of course the families are like, it's just what Dad does. So, but like the things you're talking about attackers can't breach what they can't see, right?
Exactly.
So I
So
mean, that really helps from that perspective of that network control and those, helping to make those unauthorized devices, that inability of them to connect.
exactly. And that kind of goes into our point of why we started as a company is that without knowing everything that's out there, we just block the things that you don't need and allow what you need, right? Permit by
Right.
exception. That kind of goes into play of network control because what we find a lot as a solutions engineer at ThreatLocker is that a lot of our customers don't know every single port. And I
Yeah.
will tell the truth, I don't know every port. And a lot of it is Google searching different ports that are open, but that's the point is
Right.
not knowing what that service is. Why is it open in the first place? And that's how we can help remediate a lot of these attack vectors that we see is because, I mean, we can get more into RDP because we pretty much know that's probably the main culprit that we see. But there's so many other ports that get exposed that we just don't know about. And we don't think that it's going to happen to us.
And I do want to talk about RDP, but the one thing I was going to, just make a comment on is, what is mind blowing is just that shift for MSPs that are used to thinking, well, the port's open, so I guess we just hope the password holds, you
Hmm.
know. So, but let's shift to the RDP because that,
Sure.
that does bring up a great point. The good old RDP cracking demo,
Hmm.
passwords don't matter moment. You guys have a powerful demo where RDP is technically open. The attacker knows the password, but they still can't connect. So can
Exactly.
you kind of walk through for our listeners, what's happening behind the scenes here?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me get onto this slide here because I think that's going to make a lot more sense. So we're showcasing a presentation we did last year at Zero Trust World, and I will get into more Zero Trust 2026 later on, but highly
Yeah.
recommend for just the cybersecurity awareness and training. But we really showed how easy it was to pretty much crack an access point because it could be a weak encryption key. And unfortunately, we still see a lot of weak passwords out there, even in 2025. But with our devices here, you could see that we have an IT admin machine, an accounting machine, and the hacker machine. And of course, the hacker machine, being able to crack the encryption key to the access point, is able to see the entire network. And let's just say, hypothetically, using IP scanner. So with IP scanner, you're going to be able to see pretty much all the IP addresses when it comes to your workstations, your servers, your printers, your switches, whatnot. So that's valuable information that you can get. One starts with applications. So I know we talked to application control in a different call, so you know how that would be
Yeah.
prevented. But let's say that IP event, angry IP scanner is allowed or IP scanner. From that point, network control is going to then have a filter status on that port, even if it's technically open.
Okay.
So that's the biggest thing is because with network control, we're doing TCP UDP protection. When you use like an advanced IP scanner, that's using a mail protocol. So you're able to see the locations of devices. You just won't be able to access them because through this presentation, we use mmap. So once we gain access to the machine, we use mmap so we can look to see what are the open services on the device. And we could see, it could be RDP, it could be FTP, whatnot, or DHCP. But if you use ThreatLocker's network control policies and you have a specific block on RDP or FTP, that status changes from open to filtered. So filtered would mean it's closed. So ThreatLocker's policies would automatically close that port all through the portal. And that would prevent the
Gotcha.
user from doing any more damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's move on a little bit as far as like the perimeter,
Mhm,
and policies. So most MSPs are still architecting security around the network, but their clients haven't had a true network perimeter since
mhm,
2019 maybe.
mhm.
So what what does network control enforce, or how does it control, enforce the access policy in a world where employees might be working from a hotel or from a Disney park, from devices that are traveling anywhere, anywhere and everywhere, and nothing is guaranteed to be behind a firewall.
Exactly. That's where with our policies, we actually override Windows firewall policies for that reason. Because what we've seen is a lot of those, like Windows firewall and some of the other firewalls, are not managed properly. There's more open ports than there need to be. So that's where our policies, being at the kernel level, are able to override maybe previous set policies that you have with your firewall, but being more on the proactive side. The biggest thing that we can offer for any new environment, because as you know, with a threat locker unified audit, every environment's different software, different users. Not every audit is the same. So
Right.
that's kind of what we go into network control is we immediately get into a simulation. We're not disrupting anything. We're not blocking anything in network control. We're just pretty much showing you live activity of what's been opened. And
Okay.
that's where you can really build on with your solutions engineer, with our support team on these are the kind of services I need. And then we bring in the deny by exception is we just block everything else after that point.
Okay. Let's hit on something practical. Every
Sure.
MSP listening, has inherited a network somewhere. Ports are left open just in case. I mean, we've all
Hmm.
seen that, right?
Hmm.
So, rules were added during a crisis and never cleaned up. Or someone opened up RDP at 11 o'clock and just forgot about it. So, Josh, what are some of the common misconfigurations that you see, and how does network control fix these problems at the endpoint, regardless of what firewall sits in front of it?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that fixes is for me visibility in the environment. We can, of course, we get that real time activity. I know this is kind of branching into a different module, Threat Locker, where we have our own full fledged GDR and we have our own MDR team. So we pretty much have that 24/7 look and response where it comes to RDP related activity in case something was misconfigured. But that's, I would say, the biggest thing that we see is that network control, even though it's in a non-disruptive state, it pretty much just shows the modern activity. And really what we want to push is being able to show you this is your live activity. This is not threat locker making it. This is your live activity. And we want to be able to build policies around that because we don't want to be in that 11 a.m. situation where some unknown port was opened, maybe
Right.
from a previous firewall. It's more of we can give you the resources, we can give you the simulations. We have tons of policies that we have published in our community of the most popular reports out there, and being able to download those, make sure it's only coming from a threat locker device. And I think I touched on this in the beginning, being able to show you if it does or does not have threat locker. That's huge because I can't tell you how many audit reviews I've had with customers where we're looking at this IP address and I'm like, well, what is that? And they're like, I have no idea. And then they're looking, they're going into their RMM trying to figure out what this device is. And I think that's good practice because that's real world. And
Yeah.
essentially that's what we're showing is that these are the incoming devices in your network. And this is how we can lock it down to the only devices that versus just, like you said, relying on other tools to prevent the unknown from
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And I know you wanted to just to do some hands-on as well. And
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and share your screen. I just want to make sure that we bring that up here.
Absolutely.
All right, Josh. So, we have up now on the screen your demo site. So let's jump in from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see within the ThreatLocker portal, I'm looking at network control, and pretty much we're going to be having policies for servers and workstations. This is where it all gets started, is where I can set really what I want to have open, and then ultimately get to a point where I'm blocking then any other open service, open port. Like I
Yeah.
talked about, it would just be in that filtered state. Um, so with workstations, you can see I only have one policy, and that's typically for workstations. I think we could all agree that we would want inbound policies to be off, because we wouldn't want to expose some of those ports we talked about onto our workstations. We typically don't see, maybe in rare circumstances, but we typically don't see like SMB being used for a workstation, or inbound to a workstation. That would be more the server side. So we want to have those exposed ports to just be denied by default. And we might see some ones we want to permit, maybe for like Windows updates and screen sharing. But I would say the majority of the work that you're going to put into network control is going to be on servers, because we still have file servers, we still have web servers, whatnot, that
Yeah.
we're going to be accessing. So really, our biggest point is to then look at your environment, and I'll show the unified audit in just a second. But being able to determine, well, I need Active Directory ports to be opened. I need SQL Server ports to be open. I need file server ports to be open. These policies are available from ThreatLocker's community right here. So we already published these policies for you to make it a lot simpler. And in those policies, we're able to pretty much tell you all the ports that are open, or are going to be open moving forward. You can see here 445, 139, 138, 137. And the biggest thing is the source. Being able to say, well, the source is either going to be this static IP address, it's going to be a
Yep.
range because it's dynamic. And then the most important thing from ThreatLocker is going to be dynamic ACLs as far as objects. Being able to say a managed device can go ahead and access my server, and being able to open these 4 ports. That's extremely important. And that's just really been how we're proactive in the game changer in mitigating a lot of these attack vectors, is based on these policies, and ultimately going to a deny. And just to showcase that really quick, because we talked about RDP, that is the most exposed port that we see. And it could be, like we talked about, weak passwords that were able to get us onto this
Yeah.
device in the first place.
Yep.
If I try to connect, even if I was able to crack the admin password, you can see the remote connection is unsuccessful, because it is going to hit that deny policy that at the very bottom, because we permit above. I don't have anything for RDP for my servers. And if we want to permit a policy for RDP, let's allow the IT administrator to be the only user, the only device to then open that port,
Okay.
instead of having it open for the entire company.
Yep.
Mhm.
So you make that very easy.
Oh, extremely easy. We have our full unified audit, so we would be able to see all the network activity. And I know I've been really honing in on the inbound side, but we
Yep.
also have outbound too. So we
Okay.
can be able to block based on destination. We do have some policies in place for maybe some adversary customers that, or sorry, countries, that you'd be able to block top level domains from that countries and whatnot. And then you can pretty much see all the outbound traffic that's happening with all your devices. And we can even create policies to deny social media, deny shadow IT products. Maybe if you have a marketing team that's looking at a new tool, right, we might want to block that because of the risk of just the data alone. So really important for you to see both sides of the inbound outbound right here. And then of course click on any of these, and then you can build a policy immediately just with
That's
one
great.
click.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned countries, and I'm sure, 9 times out of 10 or more, that's one of the biggest things that is open. For lack of better terms, it's open to the world.
Oh, Absolutely. And then we can visualize that, and like I talked about here, just to show off the community and ThreatLocker, it's pretty much going to show every module that we have and the policies that our team publishes. So definitely would look at these here. And then if we go to network policy, the top two are going to be some of those countries that our customers are concerned about, especially for outbound traffic. So we already have uh, TLDs available for these two here. Then the rest of the policies we see here are the ones that I had earlier that I just downloaded to make it a lot simpler, because those are going to be the most common ports we probably need to have opened for your managed devices, and everything else we could just have it hit the deny policy from there.
That's excellent. And, it's those outbound. I mean, of course, MSPs focus a lot on those inbound threats, but, those outbound ones are just as scary. And,
Hmm.
and the ease of being able to have impact on that is, makes life so much easier for an MSP trying to onboard a new client, and go through
Absolutely.
that process.
Absolutely, and we came out with a more user-friendly module, I would say, from network control. Because network control, when we block, we block. You don't get a pop-up that you might be used to when you try to run a brand new application, or maybe you
Yeah.
get the UIC prompt. So we came out with a module called web control. So this is going to be more of the user-friendly side when it comes to content filtering. And this is kind of really what has been new with network control. Even though they're two separate modules, they do coincide together, because this is going to be where this is not relying on DNS. These
Okay.
policies are stored locally to your endpoint, and you'd be able to then block categorization and also be able to block domains. As you can see here, like I have policies to block Facebook, I have policies to block Snapchat, I have policies to then block sports, gaming, gambling, and whatnot. So if I were to access one of those sites that I have blocked that might not want our users to have access to, especially during a breach, you could see here I get the splash page
Yep.
that I wouldn't get before in network control if I just did an outbound deny. But then our end users can go ahead and fill out a request. And then this would be then in our approval center, the response center of ThreatLocker, as you can see here. And then I can go ahead and make a decision. So we have the network
Okay.
control that does that explicit deny based on inbound, outbound. But if you want more of a user-friendly content filter that's not relying on DNS, that's all agent, you can go ahead and utilize web control, and the two work very well together.
That's huge. And I'm assuming there's also that integration into, PSAs. So, when they do that, that's coming through as a ticket for them to be able to take
Absolutely.
action on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So ticket integrations are extremely important with ThreatLocker. I will definitely note that most of them we can then auto close. So what's nice is if you approve it in ThreatLocker, it will then close within your PSA. So
Nice.
that's been very positive for a lot of my MSPs, who
Yeah.
used to holler at me when it wasn't like that. And
Yeah.
I would say the other big thing with web control is the ordering. And we go by firewall ordering with our modules, and that goes into web control. So the biggest thing is I can have a global deny for, let's see here, like for gambling, that hits the entire organization. But you can see here I have a permit policy for FanDuel just for my own machine. So if I were
Okay.
to access any other gambling site, you would get that splash top like you saw before.
Yep.
But if I were to access FanDuel, I would have no problem. And this is the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of our customers, is that it's not as easy to make these exceptions with other content filters out there. You're going to have to bypass, you're going to have to turn it off to make those adjustments. So you could really see how we can do global denies for different categories or different websites, but then allow an individual and just make sure that the order is at a higher negative for that.
Well, plus, one location to go ahead and do that. The more that we can simplify that process, and, have, help desk techs be able to go to one centralized location to be able to make those changes is a huge positive. The real world impacts here, less noise, fewer tickets, faster response is what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. And like we really have given so much more data. A lot more dashboards are coming out with our modules, like with network control, and you can see here with web control, just to get a full bird's eye view on what is happening in the last 7 days. Is there any adjustments as a technician logged in ThreatLocker I can make? Is there any questions I have for my solutions engineer that I meet with weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? So we're giving you more and more data and just more visibility in your environment without really having to dig through the logs.
That's awesome. And and before we wrap things up here, there's a few things I just kind of want to recap
Mhm.
for MSPs. At the end of the day, attackers, can't reach, they can't breach, what they can't see. Network control that Josh has just walked us through, plays a huge role in making this process easier, hiding assets from anyone not explicitly allowed, and that open port doesn't equal access anymore. Allowing flips the whole motto on its head, and that perimeter is gone. Security, has to follow those devices, not necessarily the office, especially today as we work from anywhere and anywhere. That visibility is truly everything, and every attempt, every connection, every deny is logged and centralized, and all of this makes a huge impact. Josh, before we close out, what's new that at ThreatLocker that MSP should know about?
Yeah, so I would say what's been really new for us is being able to make compliance a lot easier to work through. We came out with a new dashboard right now. It's in beta. It's called Defense Against Configurations. Pretty much is going to show you the most popular frameworks. Let's talk about like CIS controls, NIST, HIPAA, FedRAMP, and through a dashboard in the Health Center, we're going to be able to show you what's misconfigured in your environment based on those frameworks. So that could be a variety of things. That could be that we show you 5 devices out of 50 don't have BitLocker enabled for encryption.
Okay.
That could be what we've been talking about with network control. How there's not a policy to protect from untrusted connections using RDP, because that's a violation with a lot of compliance out there. So it's going to look at your environment and pretty much show you what's misconfigured. And then we pretty much have the policies in place for you to use and download and be effective with in order to pass that audit. And it's helped so many of our customers to get closer to 100% because it's going to give you a rating. So pretty much I see
Okay.
customers at like the 55, 60. So, not terrible, but a little bit, we got to improve a little bit more on that. But it's really bringing a lot of people into ThreatLocker because they might have not even known about these configurations until we show them with the DAC dashboard. I mean, before it would just be showing you knowledge base articles on, okay, yeah, we're CMMC 2.0. Here's the documentation for it. But the fact that we can show you, hey, these are your live configurations. They're misconfigured. We can show you how to fix them in ThreatLocker. It's been every customer has been really, really excited about it, and that's been the biggest thing for us as a company in really pumping out because we're adding a lot more configurations or a lot more frameworks we're adding, and it's really getting our customer base more involved in actually utilizing ThreatLocker to what it needs to be.
That's great. And you guys also have a big event coming up, your showcase event, Zero Trust World. I have been to
Mhm,
two of them. I'm very excited to be looking forward to attending Zero Trust World 2026, which will be coming up in March and
mhm.
in Orlando. Maybe you can give a little background about the event.
Yeah, well, one thing I can say is Florida in March is a fantastic time
Yeah,
because I know you're up in Michigan, so I think that won't be a tough decision on your part,
not at all.
being down here. But yeah, it's a very different trade show. This is gonna be my sixth Zero Trust. I've been going since the first one, so I really got to see the evolution of it. Really got to see our CEO Danny Jenkins' vision with the event, which is just amazing to really see all the customers come together who love ThreatLocker, and it's it's going to be more educational. That's the biggest feedback I get from my customers is like, I'm actually learning something. I'm not giving so much homework to my team because we know how that goes. When it comes to going into the solutions pavilion, of course, we will have our sponsors there, but there's going to be there're going to be Metasploit labs. There's going to be Hack in the Box. There's going to be dark web. There's going to be more modules focused on ThreatLocker with network control and storage control, rubber ducky sessions. So it's going to be a lot of cybersecurity awareness. And I guarantee you're going to come out with something new from that.
And that is really the amazing thing, is what differentiates your event from so many events. There's a lot of great events out there, don't get me wrong, but the hands-on focus that you guys have, that focus on, the security components. You mentioned the rubber ducky session, and I was just blown away, not only by the event itself, but the amount of people, the line. You would have thought that, Apple was releasing a new iPhone. The line was so long for people to get into that session. It's amazing.
Yeah, and what's nice is you get to keep that rubber ducky. I might have not supposed to be saying that on this podcast, but that's also part of it too, which is really cool to receive that.
And I'm very excited to tell our audience that you guys are giving our listeners a $200 off discount of Zero Trust World 2026. And we do have a special registration code here. If you go to ztw.com, use the registration code ZTW you get $200 off the event. So I want to thank ThreatLocker for extending that discount to our audience. I greatly appreciate that.
Fantastic.
And with that being said, Josh, it's always great to have you on. I really appreciate you walking us through how MSPs can stop threats, not at detection, not at response, but at first contact. This is where the industry is going. For everybody listening, if you want to level up your security stack, increase your operational efficiency, and reduce exposure from remote and hybrid environments, network control is absolutely something worth taking a look at. And with that being said, again, Josh, thank you for being here today. For all of our listeners, I want to thank you for being here, listening to us. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.